So today we're talking about a hearing where Dr. Ben Carson, former HUD secretary, found himself in the middle of a classic AOC interrogation.
Thank you, Chairwoman, and thank you, Secretary Carson, for joining us today. Secretary Carson, in December 2017, you delivered a keynote at the Manhattan Institute where you stated, quote, "The war on poverty sometimes conflicted with the war on drugs, which often dealt harshly with nonviolent offenders, taking men away from their families and disproportionately affecting minority communities." Are these your words?
Yes.
Do you acknowledge that the war on drugs disproportionately impacted Black communities and communities of color, despite marijuana and other drug use levels being comparable to white communities?
Traditionally, that has been the case.
And I see here, are you also aware that when a formerly incarcerated person is homeless, there's a 60% chance that they will be rearrested? But if that same person has access to housing, the percentage drops to 29%.
Housing is one of the factors that is beneficial in preventing recidivism.
Mm-hmm. I'm concerned here that the war on drugs has not been solely limited to incarceration, and that the negative impact of the war on drugs has not been limited to incarceration. But also we had legislated rippling effects that also seems to have been codified in our housing system. Are you aware of HUD's one-strike rule, which evicts tenants for a single incidence of criminal activity, no matter how minor, with no holistic review?
There is the ability of local jurisdictions to alter that rule.
Mm-hmm. But federally, this provision still persists, correct?
As far as I know, it's still intact.
Mm-hmm. And so a person could be stop and frisked and be found in possession of a small amount of marijuana and then be evicted or have their entire family evicted from public housing.
That is a possibility.
Are you aware that owners and public housing authorities can subject tenants to tests for alcohol and drugs?
They can require that, yes.
Mm-hmm. And I see here that we also have no-fault policies where an entire family can be evicted for the criminal activity of a guest of the household, even without the knowledge of anyone in that household. Are you aware of that provision as well?
The use of such activity is extremely limited, if ever used.
Mm-hmm. But they are still codified in federal law, correct?
Is it on the federal books? As far as I know, it's been on the books for many, many years.
Mm-hmm. Do you support reversing some of these provisions?
Do I prevent which provisions?
Say the no-fault policy.
I can talk about that on individual cases if you have an example that you want to talk about.
Well, I'd say, would you support being able to move some of these policies over to a more holistic review? You know, you yourself asked for case-by-case consideration. Should that case-by-case consideration be codified in federal law instead of having blanket one-strike or no-fault policies?
I'm always in favor of more flexibility.
Well, I'm happy to hear that, Secretary Carson. I'd also like to highlight there's been much talk about the issue with NYCHA and public housing, and it's horrifying, the conditions that are happening in NYCHA. It's horrifying that people are living through winter without heat, opening their ovens to try to make sure that they're able to sleep through the night. But I think it's important to notice that this is not about throwing more money to the problem. This is about throwing the money at the problem. NYCHA and public housing across the country has been starved by members of Congress for over 15 years, and that deficit has built up for many, many years, which has led to, in New York City alone, a $32 billion price tag to make sure that we get people basic heat, hot water, and so on. And I don't think that, no matter what policy changes we make, you can't take food away from a child and then not understand why they can't or don't eat. And I think that that's exactly what's happening with our public housing program. Chairwoman, I would like to seek unanimous consent to submit to the record a New York Times article on what it would take to fix New York's public housing.
Without objection, such is the order.
Thank you very much. And I'd also like to make of note that the provisions that we wanted to reverse, including one strike and no fault policies, are being introduced in our bill on the Fair Chance at Housing Act. Thank you very much.
She opens her remarks with a polite thank you, the traditional niceties, but within about 5 seconds she launches into a quote from Carson's 2017 speech. Carson acknowledges it. Calm, cool, collected. He's not dodging anything. That's something people forget about Ben Carson. He actually answers questions. Directly. Then AOC pivots. She starts building her case around the war on drugs and how it affected minority communities. Carson agrees with her on the basic point. Historically, yes, minority communities were disproportionately impacted. But AOC isn't interested in agreement. She's setting up a trap about housing policy. Next, she jumps into homelessness and recidivism statistics. A 60% rearrest chance if someone is homeless, 29% if they have housing. Carson, again, gives a straightforward answer. Housing is one factor that helps reduce recidivism. No debate there. But then AOC does what she's known for. She connects 3 different policy areas, criminal justice, housing law, and federal enforcement, and tries to form a sweeping indictment of HUD. It's a strategy that sounds powerful until you actually break down what she's doing. She's applying modern progressive standards to decades-old bipartisan policies and pretending Carson invented them. AOC ends by requesting a New York Times article be added to the record, and then uses her final moment to plug her bill revering the very policies she spent the last 5 minutes condemning. It's classic AOC, precise, energetic, rhetorically gifted, but ultimately focused on political messaging rather than collaborative problem-solving. Carson, meanwhile, stayed calm, factual and steady, and frankly, more open to reform than she expected, which is probably why she never slowed down enough to acknowledge it. This hearing perfectly sums up the broader political divide we see today. A progressive push to rewrite long-standing policies overnight versus a more cautious, common-sense approach that says, let's look at things case by case and not dismantle systems without understanding the consequences. Carson wasn't defensive, he wasn't combative, he was reasonable. And believe it or not, he agreed with AOC more than she was prepared for. But sometimes, agreement doesn't fit the clip you're trying to post on Twitter. If we want real housing reform, it has to be done through clear-eyed assessment, not theatrical exchanges built for sound bites. The truth is, flexibility matters, management matters, execution matters, and throwing money at public housing without accountability has already proven to be a disaster in cities like New York. This exchange showed that reforms are possible, but they'll never happen if every conversation turns into a political monologue. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know what you think. Was Carson too soft? Was AOC grandstanding? Or do you think both made good points? Drop your thoughts below.